Buccaneers conversation going. We'll do with our guy Greg Auman from Fox Sports. Greg, I was going to try to talk a little Braden Point and all this Todd Bowles discussion, brother. I had Scott Reynolds on, our buddy from Pewter Report, yesterday, and he believes that the Bucs have reached the ceiling with Todd Bowles. And then an article today from our pal John Romano in the Tampa Bay Times saying, hey, that would be, a rash decision, and gave many examples of why you don't want to elevate an OC before he's ready. And I like Liam Coen, but I do have my reservations of a guy like Liam Coen being elevated because he's 39. He's never been a head coach before. This isn't Gruden, where he was a 3-year head coach, with the Raiders before coming here. I want to ask you your opinion on whether you think Todd will be back and whether you should be back to start things off today.
Yeah, sure. I think he will be back. And honestly, I think he should be back. Again, if you can show me somebody else in NFL history that won 3 straight division titles and got canned, no matter how crappy the divisions were, let me know. That's not usually you don't. I get people making parallels to Tony Dungy and how Tony hit a point where the ownership thought maybe this is as far as you can take the team. And again, sure enough, next year Gruden takes him and wins the Super Bowl. I don't know if all the parallels line up for that. I thought John Romano did a great job today in kind of laying that out. Dropped a Rob Chudzinski reference in the paper, which is always strong. But no, I think, with Coen, it's one of those where, Coen had an amazing season, like literally maybe the best offensive season in Bucs history, statistically speaking, and when you're doing things better than they did with Tom Brady, that says something, and overall their numbers are better than they were Tom Brady. Best balance an offense the Bucs have ever had. The run game. And again, it's not like everything is the same and Liam Coen arrived and things got better. Offensive line is better. Bucky Irving is a playmaker that they probably haven't seen here since Doug Martin. There are lots of other things that have contributed to this offensive rise, but I think in terms of taking things and making them better, it's a much bigger leap this year than it was last year when everybody got excited about Dave Canales replacing Byron Leftwich, and Canales got a head coaching job. So I think in both cases, you have two guys that are making really big leaps, okay? For Canales, even though he'd been in the NFL 14 years, never been a coordinator, never been a play caller, comes Tampa, does well, and takes a second leap. You think about tripling your salary 2 years in a row, really hard to do that, okay? And did it. And again, it's good progress in the first year in Carolina. There's nothing about what Dave Canales did that should give pause to anybody wondering about what a Bucs offensive coordinator can do as a head coach. Liam Coen is in the SEC last year. He's a college coordinator, So this is a big leap all by itself. And again, the question NFL teams will have is, can he make the same leap again? Can he handle another major upgrade in job title and perform at a high level? And he's right there. There's enough jobs that are open right now. He'll be in the mix. He'll be in the thick of things. So it's just a matter of whether he gets an offer, whether it's a team that he feels like is worth leaving a good situation here for. It's tough to turn those offers down. The money is crazy right now. You're talking about at a minimum $5-6 million a year, 5 or 6 years, fully guaranteed. If you're terrible and you get fired after 1 year, you're getting paid for 5. Right. So there aren't many opportunities to have that kind of generational wealth as a coach when you've slogged along for 15, 20 years, making a lot less than that.
I guess, too, when people are talking about, oh, my God, we can't let Liam go out the door. There are other offensive coordinators out there, right? Like, that's the thing. And I said this earlier, and I wanted to get your opinion. I said this on Monday. I think the Buccaneers are in a better spot now, if Liam were to leave, than they were after Byron and after Canales, because there's proof of concept, there's stability at the head coaching position, there's stability at the quarterback, and you have good young playmakers as well as veteran guys and an offensive line. So I think it's been tough because we know that Canales and Liam Coen were not the first choices of the Buccaneers. I think it would be easier to get an offensive coordinator. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, and the other thing is that you also now really should give some credit to Todd Bowles and to some extent Jason Light and their ability to identify OCs, in that it's easier to get a retread and somebody who's done this and done that. Canales and Coen really hadn't done what they were asked to do in Tampa, and both of them made their teams better. And that to me is the single biggest evaluation of a hire is the job better than when you found it. So again, like if the Bucs don't want Liam Coen to leave, they don't want to lose Liam Coen. And if they did, whoever that next guy is, it's going to be hard for him to match the success they had. Don't get me wrong. But they're also going to feel pretty good about their ability to find somebody that's well suited, whether it's somebody on their own staff, whether it's opening up and going outside again. It's not like they interviewed 9 guys last year and they only liked Liam Coen. There's other guys in that process that they liked who might be more available now, who might be, wow, this is actually a top 5 offense instead of me taking over a 21st ranked offense and I'm not sure what the line is like. There's a lot of reasons to like this job. It'll be a coveted job, more so than it was a year ago. It doesn't mean they're going to hit on it as well as they did with Liam Coen, but if they had to, there's reasons to be optimistic they could still find a good coach and still do really well.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, come over and take over the 32nd best running attack.
Right. I mean, and that's something that, honestly, that's something that's kind of chronic, if you will. You look at what their run game was from like 17 to 24, 2 years in a row, not only last in yards, but last in yards per carry. So that tells you, again, that says there's some fundamental problems with the line, with the backs you're inheriting. And now, I mean, with the exception maybe of Ben Bredeson, that line's going to be back intact.
Right.
They can add to it. They can actually upgrade it in theory. And the backs are all back. So it should be a run game that goes into next season as the expectation of being a top 10 or a top 5 run game. And that's a draw. That makes your life easier as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, you want less questions and more answers when you're trying to take a job like that. And I'm curious to see if Elijah Klein is a guy that they take a look at in that spot, because I know late in the preseason there was a lot of, like, they made him available for some radio interviews, and you saw him play a couple of different spots on the line in the preseason. You're like, man, maybe that's the guy. I'd keep an eye on him at that guard spot. I wanted to ask you about Mike Evans. I didn't get a chance to talk about this yet, but I know he didn't speak Sunday night because I was in the locker room and I wasn't there. Obviously, I was here on Monday. Did he didn't speak to the media Monday, did he?
No. I mean,
is that cause for concern at all? Because Mike is a guy that he speaks after every game, good or bad. He's one of those guys. I think it just struck me. I don't know. It's like a big worry, but it was just a little funky that Mike didn't speak after the season. Should we look into that at all?
Yeah, I don't think so. I wasn't in the Bucs locker room at all. I wrote Commanders after the game. I kind of was tasked with writing with the winner and moving forward to that. So I was in the Washington, which is what I did in week 1, which is strange, even though they lost. But I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's one of those where the post-game locker room in the NFL, if you're there for the head coach, and you almost always want to be there for the head coach, the locker room has started being open when Bowles starts talking. So even if Bowles only goes 6-7 minutes, if you immediately go in that locker room, there are guys that are gone. There are guys that talked, and there's guys that left without talking. So it's kind of like, it's not like he's going to sit around and go like, man, I know this is over. I sure would like to talk to the media about losing. And,
yeah, right.
So I think guys leave. Monday, our access is an open locker room, but again, that's not always a high participation level. It was great that we got Lavonte. We talked to other people, key people. But again, I wasn't expecting Mike Evans to be there. I think, there's no reason to worry. Mike Evans is back under contract. I think he's happy where he is. Again, got the absolute joy of winning a division title, extending that record a week earlier. This is not how he wanted the season to end. I thought Mike had a good game. Like most parts of the offense, they wanted more of it, obviously. But what he did and what he was asked to do, I thought he did fine.
Yeah, I've been kind of not going to the press conferences anymore because I just go right to the locker room because I want to be able to get some of that talk because everybody has Todd Bowles and everybody has Baker Mayfield, but I want to be able to talk to Tristan and some of these other guys. And Bucky and Rashad, they leave right away. Like you can't get those guys. Like you get them as they're grabbing their food on the way out. Hey, Bucky, good game. But Mike is, and that's the reason why I ask, is because Mike is usually there and he doesn't usually get out. But when we walked in, Mike was actually one of the first people that walked out, which I just thought it was a little funky that, Kate Otton's walking around giving daps to everybody, saying goodbye to everybody. So it just, he's just probably taking the loss a little bit harder than others. A guy that took the loss really hard was Lavonte David. He had tears in his eyes when we were over there. It's hard to hear him because he's whispering and he's not the loudest guy anyway, Greg. But man, Sunday night, KJ Britt walked by me. He had tears in his eyes. Lavonte had tears in his eyes. And you and I have been in there after Buccaneer regular season losses, playoff losses, season ending losses. And I've never seen Lavonte that like rattled. what about your gut? Does your gut tell you that that's it for Lavonte?
I don't know. It definitely, I think you definitely weigh that with a very real understanding that it could be the last time you're in this locker room. It could be the last time you're getting dressed after a game. And it's after a loss. That's not how you want to finish your career. So I sit there with Lavonte and I wonder, I think Lavonte played better in 2024 than he did in 23. I thought he was just all around better. Again, unequivocally the leader of this defense, puts everybody in the right spot, makes plays well beyond his years. I don't think it's a matter of whether Lavonte could come back. They'd welcome him back. It would be comparable to whatever he made this year, and you're thrilled to have him. I mean, inside linebacker is a major question mark for the Bucs, whether Lavonte is back or not.
Right.
In that, if he's back, that's great, but you have to be planning for life after him, and you also have to fill the spot next to him. I mean, they had three guys just kind of rotating in a waiver wire claim in Deion Jones, and J.J. Russell is a backup, and K.J. Britt is a part-time guy. That's not the answer. None of those three should be your week one starter next to Lavonte David. So whether it's a high draft pick, whether it's spending, because it's the nice thing about inside linebackers, you can spend and get a good linebacker without necessarily paying a lot. But they need to address it. Again, Lavonte, I think for him, what it comes down to is he went out as a division champ. He went out in a home playoff game. If he thinks that can happen again, if he feels good physically about where he is, he's at an age where most people aren't playing linebacker. It's like him and DeMario, I guess Brooks back in the day. This actually is a team that has a history of old linebackers, which is cool, but it's not the norm. So again, if he wants to walk away, he's had an amazing career. He'll have people making a strong case for him being a Hall of Famer 5 years later. I think he could play again. I think he probably still play at a high level. It's just a matter of, do you want to go out feeling like you still had your A game? Do you risk maybe not being as fast or maybe not being the player you are? I mean, I think he's deserved the right to find that out. And I think the only two options for him are returning or retiring. I don't think we're going to see him Bobby Wagnering with another team or something.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know what he wants to do. It's one of those where he's earned the right to go out on his own, and that's honestly better than some Bucs legends have on that side of the ball.
You got that right, buddy. I wanted to ask you this, like on like a reporter or journalist type level, because you've been doing this longer than me. I've been doing it for more than 10 years now, which is kind of crazy to think that it's been over a decade for me here doing this in Tampa. Do you feel you never know when these guys make these decisions, right? But do you feel like being around locker rooms more, you have a better idea? Or is it because like Alex Killorn was sitting at his locker after the Lightning lost, and he just sat there. And it was just like, that's not, we just lost in the playoffs, sat there. That was my last game in the Lightning uniform.
Yeah.
Steven Stamkos did it last year, and he was looking out into the crowd, standing on the ice. And some people were, you don't know, but there's just feelings that you get that guys are leaning one way or the other. Am I crazy for thinking that? Or is that one of those things where it's just like, when you have the experience of being in locker rooms, you kind of pick up on things that maybe you wouldn't if it's your first year covering a team?
Yeah, I mean, again, like we talked to Lavonte at his locker and, was asking him what it's like. Again, Lavonte's first 7-8 years in Tampa, they didn't make the playoffs. So the idea that they've made the playoffs 5 years in a row and people are upset and looking for a change of head coach, that kind of thing. You're aware of how much he's raised the bar in Tampa. Right. And the expectations have changed so much, even in the last 5 years. From, again, everybody points to Brady, and Brady elevated the expectations, absolutely. But the guys that have carried that in 2 full years since he's been gone now, I think they appreciate that it's a different world, and they're leaving the franchise in a different state and expectation than where they found it. So, again, like if you're Lavonte, again, if you take this year's Bucs team and you give them the injury luck of 2020, okay, which means Godwin is there on Sunday, and it means Whitehead and Servassier Dennis. And again, if a corner goes down, Bryce Hall is there to help out. If you give them that, they win more games. They're probably in a better position at the end of the game Sunday. But you don't know that next year's going to have better injury luck. It could be worse. This team hasn't had a quarterback miss a game with injury, I guess, since maybe 18. So there's things that can go wrong that are completely out of your control. And you come back, again, Brady came back in 22 thinking he had one thing, and it played out not the same way. And you don't want to go out that way. And I think Brady probably an example of not having the finish you want in that last year, because an 8-9 team and a first round division playoff loss it isn't a Tom Brady finish,
Right.
But again, you don't know whether it's going to be better or worse. I think he likes what he does. I think he loves being a leader and a mentor and a guy that everyone in that locker room leans on and counts on and learns from every day. But I don't know if that means there's another year of that left for him.
The Bucs 2025 draft pick in the first round is going to be used for what position, do you think?
I almost guarantee it's on defense. If it's not on defense, again, maybe an OJ Howard falls to them or something.
No way. All right, where specifically?
Right. What they have to decide is going to the premium positions, which for them would be edge or cornerback. Okay. Mm-hmm. And somebody pointed out they've drafted last 4 years of the draft, top 4 rounds of the draft, they've had one defensive back that they've taken. That's Tyke Smith this past year. So they've neglected corner. Part of the reason they've done that is because they drafted so well the years before, and you had Winfield and Davis and Dean and Murphy Bunting and all these types. They need a dose of youth and talent at a high level. So you could totally, 19 a year ago got you the first corner in the draft. I don't think that'll be the case this year. Mm-hmm. You're probably on the 3rd or 4th corner at 19 now. Linebacker. Okay. Again, if you're looking to replace Lavonte David, that's an excuse to put a premium first round pick into a position like inside linebacker that doesn't always go that high. So that wouldn't surprise me. Georgia has some outstanding defensive players that Todd Bowles knows really well.
Yep.
And could be good matches at 19, including linebacker. Edge, I think everything on defense can start and end with, did you have a lot of pressure rushing forth the quarterback? And they don't have I think Diaby's close, but they don't have a game-changing double-digit sack guy on their roster right now. You can add one, in theory, at 19. Jared Verse with the Rams. You look at what he's done. He's a guy who was there at 19. So that could be them. One of those 3 positions, if I'm guessing right now, if they can have the best linebacker in this class, I can see them doing that. They got Lavonte in the 2nd round, so you can find a starter in the 2nd round. But it's between those 3, and it just depends on whether you're getting the 4th corner or the 1st linebacker or the 3rd edge. They've done a really good job for the most part of identifying these types. You think about Wirfs, you think about Winfield, you think about even Graham Barton this year. I know the Logan Halls and the JTSs and stuff haven't necessarily panned out they went to, but they've drafted well at the top for the most part.
Yeah, I think Logan Hall's kind of step in for that William Golston type where he's going to be able to stop the run. I don't know if he's ever going to be a big time, pass rusher, but that guy's available as hell. He's a big dude, takes up JTS, and it's kind of funny that we were speaking about this yesterday. No more JTS, no more Kyle Trask. For the job that Jason Light has done, he's done such a great job here in the last couple of years. Now that their tenures are done here, it's kind of interesting to kind of look back and see the Kyle Trask and the JTSs, where was Kyle ever going to get a chance after Brady, the quote unquote, competition with Baker, and JTS, man, he was just a guy that was never able to get over the hump, Greg. He was either over pursuing or he didn't make the play at the top of the tree there. Those 2 guys just did not work out for the Bucs.
Yeah. And again, JTS was a guy that, hadn't played his senior year, certainly a freakish athlete, looked like someone who could do it, and it just never really clicked. You had moments, you had sacks here and there, but not the volume of plays and impact you need from a first round pick. And Trask is a weird one. Trask, when they drafted him, I don't think they knew that Brady had 2 more years left in him. I don't think they knew that they would hit on Mayfield the way they did. Mm-hmm. So the single biggest thing against Trask is just that he's been behind 2 really good quarterbacks who never get hurt and don't come off the field. And there's lots of other guys that are probably comparable to Kyle Trask that get to play because the guys in front of him got hurt. Davis Mills, got like 20 starts in Houston just because the people in front of him got hurt. So I don't know what happens to Kyle Trask. I don't think he has much reason to come back here because you're just asking for more of the same. He's got to go to a team with a wobbly quarterback situation, either with a rookie who might not be ready or a vet who's kind of not quite there. He's got to have a chance to win a job without somebody getting hurt. And again, for Kyle, he's kind of done this routine before in terms of waiting and being a backup before you get a chance. But I'll be curious to see what he picks and what the priorities are for him in terms of going somewhere, taking 1 year to maybe reset himself and try and get on the field at least.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, and I'm gonna go through after we get off. I'm gonna try to go through the teams and see where, because there's just so many young quarterbacks in the league now, right? They usually think, oh, he stay in division, but I mean, does he go to? Is he gonna want to go to a place where he's definitely gonna sit? Like, how many jobs are gonna have competition next year? Does he go to a place like the
Right.
Giants, right? Right? There's so
Giants,
many.
Raiders, Titans. There's teams with bad quarterback situations,
Right.
and it's kind of like even if you're not the best guy they take, quarterbacks in this year's class aren't going to be locked down week one, start every game starters. They'll be guys that might not be ready. So you hate to put him in that role of that Tyrod Taylor bridge quarterback, somebody that can come in and kind of man things until the rookie's ready. That's a better lot than what he's had so far. And if he just gets a chance to play in real games and play a full game in the NFL and show what he can do, it might be great, it might be bad, we don't know. He hasn't had that in 4 years. So I think more than anything, he has to find a place that there's a real path for him to get on the field and get to show people what he can do. He hasn't had that.
If you had to take a guess right now, who would be the Super Bowl matchup? I got Ravens and Eagles.
Oh man, I had it's funny, my preseason pick was Lions and Texans, and it
Oh.
didn't look good for Houston for a while there until they won this weekend. So no, I still feel really good about Detroit. I think Philly has come together on defense in a way I wasn't expecting, but Detroit's just a dominating team. And I was thinking with all their injuries, they could fade and the Vikings could catch them, and that clearly did not happen. So Lions on that side, it's so hard to ask for or root for the Chiefs just because they've done it so much.
Yeah.
So I'll say Baltimore right now. I'll say Lions and Ravens, and they're going to rush for about 500 yards in that Super Bowl. But that's what I'd take right now. I'm excited to see what it'll be.
Yeah. Last thing before I let you go, because people are talking about the offensive play callers as the head coach, and then you have Detroit, where you have Dan Campbell. But do you want it every season where, all right, where is Ben Johnson going to go somewhere? Is Ben like, what would you rather have? Would you rather make the move to try to get that young offensive play caller and take that chance? Or do you stay with the quote unquote like leader, like Dan Campbell, kind of like what we have here, even though Dan doesn't necessarily call the plays, but that's kind of the conundrum that some of these teams are in, like the Buccaneers, right?
Oh yeah. And it's one of those, I mean, again, you look at McVay, and McVay looked like McVay on Monday night and dominated. Okay. But I mean, my coach of the year vote was Kevin O'Connell. And I thought 2 weeks ago, they looked really good. And now it's like, oh, okay, well, it's a regular season award. And, that's two times in 3 years, he's had a 12, 13, 14 win team that's bowed out in the first round. So again, it's like you can be a really good offensive mind, and it doesn't necessarily make you a great head coach. O'Connell, if Liam Coen ends up being Kevin O'Connell, that's a great goal for him to be. He's been a very good head coach. I just think to find what's really hard is to find the culture. I think everybody in NFL wants to be Detroit next year. And I think you're going to see Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn both go. And honestly, they could be coordinators that come from underneath both of them. Just because that vibe is there. I mean, nobody in the NFL was better at not only winning, but putting the foot on the neck of your opponent and not letting up. And that's who they are. I don't know if it'll translate to a championship. There's a couple different teams that have never won a Super Bowl that have a real shot here in the next 5 weeks. But no, I think the offense-defense thing, I think there's still a strong tilt to offense, and we're all talking about young offensive coaches and Cohen and Johnson and Cliff Kingsbury and other guys like that. I think there's always going to be a tilt in that direction, but there are going to be defensive coaches that win too. I mean, McDermott is still winning in Buffalo as a defensive coach. Harbaugh's a special teams guy. He's still doing okay, not being an offensive guy there in Baltimore. So no, I think, again, the trend is still, I don't care if he's 37. He's a smart offensive coach who spent some time with Sean McVay. That's probably not going to change. But I'll be curious to see how these things shake out. These jobs, Jacksonville and Vegas, again, Liam Coen will be right in the thick of things for those. I don't know if he'll go or not. I don't know if they're going to lose front office guys or not. This could be the first year in a long time that they really get hit hard in terms of getting rated and other teams seeing what the Bucs have done for sustained success in the last 5 years. and saying, let me borrow some of that. Let me see if I can replicate it in my own franchise.
Well, you know what that means? That means you're doing something right. My guy, Greg Auman, Fox Sports. Greg, thanks so much for joining us, man. I appreciate it. Enjoy a little bit of some time off, and have a great rest of your week, man. We'll talk soon.
Cool. Thanks, Jay. Always happy to be on.
All right, pal. The one and only Greg.